When the spotlight fades and a professional wrestler's time in the ring comes to an end due to age, injuries, or whatever else, it can be hard for a one-time star to adapt to life without wrestling. Fortunately for some, even though they may no longer be plying their trade in the squared circle, they have a particular talent or skill set that enables them to work in the business in another capacity. I'm Sam Driver from Cultaholic Wrestling, and these are 10 former wrestling stars who still work behind the scenes. Join us! Number 10. Scotty Too Hotty. As a member of Too Cool, Scotty Too Hotty was a part of one of the most popular acts of the Attitude Era. And long after both Grandmaster Sexay and Rikishi had left the company, the Master of the Worm stuck around as a solid hand who could be plugged into the Cruiserweight division, or more likely, used to put rising stars over. Released in 2007, Scotty was brought back into the fold in 2016 as a coach at the WWE Performance Center, a job he would do for the next 5 years. Toward the end, however, the former tag team champion realized that, though he enjoyed his job, he was at the point that he was simply doing it for a paycheck and wanted to get back in the ring himself. And so it was back to the indies for Mr. Too Hotty, who was happily doing the Weekend Warrior thing when Sonjay Dutt, another ex-wrestler working backstage, asked him if he wanted to come and try out for AEW as a coach and producer. The tryout was successful, and Scotty's been working for Tony Khan's organization since late 2023. Number 9. Molly Holly. Despite being relatively inexperienced in her own right, Nora Greenwald was such a natural that just a couple of years into her own in-ring journey, she was recruited by Randy Savage to show his then-girlfriend Gorgeous George the ropes. Having wrestled as Mona and Miss Madness for WCW, Greenwald would soon join WWE as Molly Holly, cousin of Hardcore and Crash. Once again, she hadn't been around for too terribly long when she was asked to help Trish Stratus and Stephanie McMahon prepare for their match at No Way Out 2001. Clearly, Molly had a knack for teaching, and for the next few years should be one of the pillars of an ever-improving women's division before leaving the company and professional wrestling in 2005. A devoted Christian with plenty of interests outside the ring, it was thought that Holly really was done, and she didn't do much in the business for a long time before becoming a trainer at the Academy Wrestling School in 2016. Special appearances for WWE led to a Hall of Fame induction in 2021, after which Molly was hired full-time as a producer and coach, with reports indicating she was receiving high marks for her work. Number 8. Chris Hero. A true student of the game who made it his mission to learn as many different styles as possible, Chris Hero was one of the new crop of indie stars who helped revitalize and revolutionize the scene in the early 2000s. Hero traveled all over the world, wrestling for promotions in Mexico, Japan, the United Kingdom, and Europe, as well as for many outfits in the United States, such as Ring of Honor, CZW, Chikara, and PWG. In 2012, Hero signed with WWE, where he wrestled for the NXT brand as Cassius Ohno, left, traveled the world a couple more times, and then returned in a player-coach role for both NXT and NXT UK. There were few talents with as much diversity of experience who could still contribute physically, but Hero was nonetheless let go as part of wider cost-cutting measures in 2020. But a man with the wrestling mind of Chris Hero wasn't going to be out of work for long, and in 2023 he began working with AEW as a coach/producer ahead of signing on full-time in 2025. Number 7. Drake Maverick. Perhaps lacking in size, but certainly not lacking in talent, UK independent star Spud grafted hard in his home country before getting his big break in the US with TNA after winning their British boot camp reality show. As rockstar Spud, he wrestled for TNA for just over 4 years before requesting his release. In October 2017, the same month he left Impact Wrestling, he signed with WWE and subsequently debuted as Drake Maverick, the babyface GM of 205 Live. From there, he would work as the manager of the Authors of Pain, be heavily involved in 24/7 championship shenanigans, and then have a run as a cruiserweight in NXT. He was released, rehired, and then released once more in the space of a few months, only to be brought back once again a few months later. This time, however, it wasn't as an on-screen talent, but as a member of the WWE creative team, assigned to working on the Raw brand. Not a bad place to end up for the man who was once forced to shoot piss himself live on pay-per-view. Number 6. Scotty Riggs. A star for WCW and ECW during the 90s, Scotty Riggs fell on some hard times when his days in the limelight were over. Riggs spiraled into addiction after he was forced to become the full-time caregiver for his mother, which took a huge mental toll on the former WCW Tag Team Champion. When his mother passed away, Scotty felt purposeless, and while living in his car and suffering from a deep depression, contemplated ending it all. A call from his old American partner, Buff Bagwell, changed things, leading to an intervention from Diamond Dallas Page. DDP not only helped Riggs recover physically, mentally, and spiritually, but also put in a call to Tony Khan, who was eager to contribute to Scotty's changing fortunes. And so, in 2024, Riggs began working for AEW in a role that encompassed a few different things, including logistical support, driving talent around, as well as a bit of coaching and match agenting. It's yet another example of how AEW and Tony Khan value the industry's veterans and often give them an opportunity to contribute after years in the wilderness. Number 5. Billy Kidman. Billy Kidman was one of WCW's true homegrown success stories. The talented cruiserweight, who helped popularize the shooting star press, had bangers with the likes of Rey Mysterio, Juventud Guerrera, and others, and was involved in some memorable storylines and angles, and even holds a rare pinfall victory over Hulk Hogan. He came to WWE when Vince McMahon purchased WCW in 2001, and would have a decent run there too prior to being released in 2005. After a couple of years on the indies, Kidman began working as a trainer for WWE Developmental Territory Florida Championship Wrestling, before being rehired full-time by WWE as a producer in 2010. From there, Kidman began primarily working in the backstage gorilla position, where it was his job to time the shows out. If a match went long or something happened to mess up the flow of an event, it was up to Kidman to adjust things so that everything ran smoothly. A high-pressure job when it comes to live TV. Kidman, who has from time to time appeared on screen to break up brawls, has been with WWE ever since, apart from a 5-month period during the pandemic where he was furloughed. Number 4. Jerry Lynn. You'd struggle to say that Jerry Lynn had a bad career, given the fact that the Minnesota native had runs in WCW, ECW, WWE, TNA, Ring of Honor, and everywhere in between, and won world titles in both ECW and Ring of Honor. But during the course of his quarter of a century as an active wrestler, Lynn arguably gave a lot more than he got back and wasn't duly rewarded for the effort he put in or the sacrifices he made. Along the way, there were various injuries, stalled pushes, and broken promises. And when Jerry decided to hang up his boots in 2013, he was hurting bad and not exactly set for life financially. Luckily for Lynn, his vast experience and glowing reputation got him a gig as a backstage producer/agent for Ring of Honor, a role he'd previously had during his TNA days. After a few years doing that, the new effing show was signed by AEW for the same function and has been there ever since. As well as dispensing knowledge backstage, Jerry hasn't been shy about publicly expressing his issues with modern-day wrestling. And I'm sure nobody wants to get a bollocking from Jerry Lynn. Number 3. Kenny Dykstra. When Ken Doane signed a WWE developmental deal at the age of 18, he was likened by many to Randy Orton as someone who picked up the business at a lightning-quick pace, with some going as far as to assert he had even more potential than the Legend Killer. Brought up as the leader of the Spirit Squad, Doane was repackaged as Kenny Dykstra, and the early signs suggested he'd get a push due to his association with Rated RKO and his feud with Ric Flair. But Dykstra quickly floundered, and the next couple of years were characterized by WWE throwing things at the wall, a tag team with Johnny Nitro, a partnership with Victoria, and hoping that something would stick. Nothing really did, and he was released, hit the indies, and briefly came back for a short, forgettable run on SmackDown with former Spirit Squad member Mikey. It didn't do too much for his in-ring career, but evidently WWE was still keen on Kenny, and he was brought back to work as a trainer in the PC in October of 2021. 2 months later, he became a backstage producer on Raw and SmackDown, with Chelsea Green giving Doane particular credit for helping her with her character development. Number 2. Madison Rayne. After paying her dues on the indie circuit for a handful of years, Madison Rayne got her break when she was signed by TNA in 2009. Joining the Beautiful People stable, Madison was initially a supporting member and acted as the sidekick of Angelina Love and Velvet Sky. Over time, however, Rayne's role in the promotion would grow, and when all was said and done, she became a 5-time Knockouts champion and a 3-time Knockouts Tag Team champion. Though she perhaps never had the standout matches that the likes of Gail Kim, Awesome Kong, and Deonna Purrazzo did, Madison was a consistent, solid hand who was versatile and reliable and got over thanks to her strong character work, which are likely the attributes that got her hired by AEW in 2022. Rayne has worked as both a wrestler and a backstage producer/coach for the AEW and Ring of Honor women's divisions, though she hasn't wrestled since 2024 and is clearly focusing more on her behind-the-scenes duties. Madison being on the books no doubt helped open the door for her husband, Josh Matthews, to come in as a producer in May of 2025. And number 1, Abyss. At some point, pretty much everyone who was anyone in TNA eventually made their way to WWE, whether it was for a career renaissance or a career-killing run. I'm so sorry, Braden Walker. I say pretty much everyone, as there were a couple of notable holdouts, including Abyss. The Monster had been approached about signing with WWE before, as the company were interested in programming him against The Undertaker. But Abyss stayed loyal to TNA and continued to work for them between 2003 and 2019, the same year he retired as a wrestler. He might have never worked a match for WWE, but the TNA Hall of Famer had enough supporters in the company that he was quickly hired to work as a backstage producer. Since then, he's gotten high marks from various influential backstage figures, with Kurt Angle claiming that Vince McMahon himself loved the work Abyss was doing. As fans saw on the Netflix docuseries WWE Unreal, not everyone has shown him the same, brotherly love, and Abyss has been described as often being worried and panicked backstage. Flaming tables and thumbtacks? Piece of cake. Mildly upsetting Bruce Pritchard? Now that will keep you up at night.